Welcome to Construction Genius. My name is Eric Anderton. According to Listen Notes, there are over 2.5 million podcasts. Creators like Joe Rogan and Tim Ferris have built their business by podcasting and making millions of dollars. I launched Construction Genius in January of 2019, and I'm nowhere close to being Joe or Tim, but I know my podcast has had a tremendous impact on my chosen audience, which is the construction industry. And you may be wondering, why am I talking about the podcast on the podcast? The reason why is because it is a medium for me to market my business to my target audience. Now, you, if you're a construction industry owner, company owner, or executive, are my target audience. Now, before you turn off this podcast and move on to a different episode, I'd like you to consider some of the thinking behind me launching the podcast and how I went about doing it, because the whole idea behind that is to help me with the marketing of my business. And you're not marketing your business in exactly the same way that I'm marketing mine, perhaps, but you might want to consider using podcasts as a marketing vehicle. And so that's what we're going to talk about on this episode of Construction Genius, is how to launch a podcast and what I've learned in doing over 130 episodes of Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. So, in the podcast, I want to discuss three main things. The first one is the right reasons to do a podcast. The second is how to get a podcast off the ground. And the third is how to stay consistent in publishing episodes, even when you're overwhelmed with running your business. Now, before I dive into it even more, you may not be the person in your business responsible for publishing a podcast or getting it out there. But again, it can be one aspect of an effective marketing strategy, particularly if you're a larger construction company. And I know it can be a tremendous way for you to establish authority and provide value to the markets that your company serves. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is the right reason to do a podcast. And in my mind, there is only one reason to do a podcast, and that is to market your business. And what is the purpose of marketing? If you've been listening to Construction Genius, you know that the purpose of marketing is twofold. It is to attract and to keep customers. A well-produced podcast targeted at a specific audience is a powerful marketing tool. And I've been astonished at how effective the show is, my show is, at establishing my authority within the construction industry. And the reason why that is because my podcast helps people to get to know me, trust me, and like me. And it's really weird. I get phone calls and emails from people who want to work with me. And my podcast has led to me working with many people and many clients, and I'm deeply grateful for all of those folks. But what just astonishes me is when I first talk to someone who has found me through the podcast, I can tell by the tone of their voice that they know me already to a great extent because they've been listening to the podcast. And that just always blows me away. And so the reason I share that with you is because you can know that if you consistently produce a podcast, you can't really fake who you are. It will come out in your interviews or in the shows that you produce. And that is a tremendous thing, because that will attract the right types of clients to you. And by listening to the podcast, they will get to know you and feel comfortable about reaching out to you and working with you. So my podcast has directly led me to landing many new customers. And it's just fantastic when they reach out to me and they chat with me. We speak for the first time. And like I said, they've been listening to my show for years, so they feel that they know me and that they're talking to a friend. And it really helps to speed up the sales process, and it helps to enhance the relationships that I have with them. It's also helped me to keep customers. Just this week, one of my clients specifically mentioned the value he gets from listening to my shows. If you're in the construction industry, think about it. If you're a subcontractor, for instance, and you're marketing to general contractors, your GCs, they're spending time on the road every week. What if they could spend 20 to 30 minutes every week with you in their car as you share with them some value in terms of the work that you do with general contractors or in terms of the construction industry in general? Think about the industry. There's so much to talk about, from innovation, technologies, leadership, process improvement, how to hire people. You have lived and breathed all of these things as a construction executive. You have a ton of experience that you can share with other people. And I want to say this, when you're launching a podcast, and because it's all about marketing, it's not about getting rich and famous. I don't have advertising on my podcast as of yet. And I got to be frank, I'm not looking for any. People have reached out to me to advertise on Construction Genius, and I've turned that advertising away because it's just not a fit for my brand and for what I want to express in Construction Genius. And so you're not doing a podcast to get rich and famous, right? You're doing it to provide value for your target audience and to get people to know, trust, and like you, because that's what marketing is all about. But one thing I have done is I've gotten my clients on the show as guests, and that really helps me to solidify my relationship with them. And so you may consider, if you do launch a podcast, not only doing shows that are focused on the industry, but also bringing your clients onto your podcast and interviewing them and giving them an opportunity to shine and to really share about what they do. You might think, Eric, you're kind of an expert at this, right? You've got the gift of the gab and all these kinds of things. I'm a construction guy or gal. What do I have to offer? And really, you've got a built-in advantage when it comes to starting a podcast. The right reasons to do a podcast are to market your business and to get people to know, trust, and like you, and to attract and keep customers. And as you do that, if you've never done a podcast before, or if you're unsure, it's worth the time and the money and the effort, because you are an industry expert. You have something to say and to share with other people. Think about how you sit down with someone, let's say at an industry event, and discuss what's going on, or you share with one of your clients how you've overcome obstacles on a project that you've built. And you're fluent in talking about that and discussing it and sharing it. All a podcast is turning on a microphone and either having a discussion with someone else or just speaking like I'm speaking and sharing your expertise. And because you've been in the industry for as long as you have a built-in advantage. And so I want to encourage you not to get intimidated by this idea of starting a podcast because you don't have, quote unquote, the gift of the gab. Bring people onto your show, interview them, or share your knowledge. And I promise you that will deliver value to the people who are listening to your show. So and this is the second thing we're covering here, is how to launch a podcast. When you first get started, it will really feel awkward. You'll be a little self-conscious and you may publish some subpar episodes, but really you shouldn't worry about it. When I launched my show, I set a goal of doing 500 episodes. I'm 130 episodes in. I've got a long way to go, and I'm okay with that, because in my business, I play long-term games with long-term people, and I know in your business, you do exactly the same thing. Now, I publish a podcast episode every week. Even if you published a podcast episode every month, you would still have 12 episodes, by the end of the year and 140 plus episodes by the end of 12 years. And when you're going out and marketing your business and talking about how you work with people, you can always point people to specific episodes that you've done as a way of folks getting to know you. And it's tremendous when you have a whole library of podcast episodes that you can point people to as a means of folks getting comfortable with doing business with you and understanding how you work, how you build projects, how you interact with the community. It really is tremendous. And that takes me to a really important point as you're launching. Make sure that you have a clear target market in mind. I have a clear target market. I'm always speaking when I'm doing these podcasts to a construction company owner or senior executive. And that's who I'm always thinking about. And when you're doing your podcast episodes, think about your target audience. So again, if you're a GC, perhaps you think about the target owners that you're going after and the target industries that you're in. Or if you're a sub, you think about those GCs that you want to do business with. And really speak to them every time you do a podcast episode. Now, what you want to do as you're launching is you want to keep the tech simple. All you need is good audio equipment. The audio equipment is most important. I use a Zoom account, the Zoom meeting platform to record most of my webinars. It's really simple to set up. And you need a halfway decent camera. I've got a halfway decent camera. The audio is most important. Now, I have a Zoom H6 portable recorder. I bought it on Amazon. It's about $400, but it gives me killer audio quality. And the audio quality is most important. I can take it on the road and record a live interview in person if I need to. And I just connect it to an ordinary microphone into my computer, and it gives me audio quality that is just sufficient. So for a couple $1,000 at the most, you can get completely set up with the audio and the video that you need. And as you're launching your show, I want to encourage you to have fun with it. As I said, I've made a long-term commitment to recording podcasts and doing podcasts. And so I'm kind of patient with myself in terms of developing the content and getting better at conducting the interviews. And so figure out the format that you like the best. If you like doing solo shows where you're just talking about the industry and problems that you've solved for clients, go ahead and do solo shows. If you like to do interviews, then find people who want to be interviewed. You might bring one of your clients onto the show and interview them about what they're looking for in the people that they choose to do business with. You may bring on a client that you've built a killer project for and interview them about what it's like to do business with you. Think about that as a tremendous way to provide a testimonial that you can point people to and really show them what it's like to work with you on an ongoing basis. But have a bit of fun with it. Maybe you do in-person interviews. Maybe you do it over the phone. Again, maybe you do one-on-one interviews or group interviews or solo shows. Whatever the case is, if you make a long-term commitment and you're providing quality content to a target audience, you're going to be pleased with the results. So finally, let's look at how to stay consistent with a podcast. Again, I launched this in January of 2019. I'm recording this in August of 2021. And every week I have produced and put out a podcast episode since then. Okay, so as you're making that long-term commitment, you've got to understand that in 2020, over 85,000 podcasts died. That is, they stopped publishing. And I believe, as in many things in life, it's not necessarily your brilliance that's most important, but it is your consistency. So this is how I've been consistent. Number one, I hunt for guests. Obviously, construction is my niche. I have a clear picture of the people I'm targeting with my podcast, and I focus my search for guests in and around my niche. I use LinkedIn. I use Twitter to reach out to people who I'd like to have on the show. One of the tactics I've used that's been very effective is searching people who are publishing business books and then bring those folks on and interview them about their books because they obviously are publishing a new book and they want to share about their book. And I've got some great interviews through doing that. But you might make a list of industry leaders that you'd like to have on the show and simply reach out to them via LinkedIn or wherever you can and talk to them about coming on and recording the podcast. I treat getting guests as kind of a sales process. So it's something that I'm consistently doing and something that I'm committed to pursuing on an ongoing basis. The second thing that I do to stay consistent is I record in batches. So right now it is 2:49 on a Friday afternoon. Today I have already recorded 3 podcast interviews, and I thought I'd just do this quick podcast episode on how I launched the podcast. And so today I've got 4 episodes that I've recorded. So that's a month's worth of episodes that I focused in on one day. Now, you may not have a day every week to set aside to recording your podcasts, but surely you can set aside a half a day once a month to record some podcasts. And if you have someone in your marketing department who's in charge of the podcasts, perhaps they can be recording 1 or 2 episodes a month. But whatever you're doing, I encourage you to batch when you record, because you've got to set up the recording, turn on your lights, get in the mind frame and the mindset that you need to record a podcast, but batch them on a particular day. I find that terrifically effective. And then again, like I've said before, get creative with your content. So for instance, it's really interesting. The content for most of my solo shows starts with a coaching conversation that I have with one of my executive coaching clients. So I coach CEOs, project executives, project managers, and we'll be having a conversation and the client will bring up an issue. We discuss how to solve it, and my client commits to action. Now, after the call, I make a note of how the client reached a resolution and which one of my coaching frameworks I use to help them reach that resolution. And then often what I'll do is turn that into a 3 or 4 minute video that I have published to my social media channels. And then I take that video, I turn that into a blog post, and then I take the blog post and add a few more details to it and come up with a 20 to 30 minute podcast episode around the specific leadership topic that we discussed. An example of this is a recent podcast episode that I did on how to successfully onboard people into your organization. And I'll just look it up here real quick. But that episode is episode number, hold on, I'm on my website here, just pulling it up. Yeah, episode number 132, why new hires slip through the cracks and how to make sure they succeed. That whole episode came from a direct conversation that I had with one of my construction company coaching clients. So all of this to say, think about the problems that you're solving right now on your projects. Think about the relationships that you've built over the years and how you've done it. Think about how you've been a benefit to the clients that you serve. And turn all of that in to episodes where you can perhaps do an episode. Let's say you can do a whole episode on how one of your clients, let's say you're a general contractor, on how one of your clients can most effectively purchase construction services and what an owner should be looking for in a general contractor. You could do a series of podcasts on just that topic and use it to promote the way that you do business. And as a result of that, give people real insights into what it's like to work with you and why they should be doing business with you. So get creative with your content. Okay, so we've talked about recording in batches. We've talked about how to hunt for guests. We've talked about getting creative with your content. These are all key in being consistent. But this is the last one that I want to share with you. And I can't emphasize this enough. Pay someone else to produce your podcast for you. I pay my podcast producer thousands of dollars a month. And I do it for a specific reason. If I produced it myself, in other words, if I did anything other than just record the show, if I had to publish the podcast notes, if I had to put it up on my website, if I had to edit the video and the audio, it would drive me absolutely insane. And it is not a good use of my time. So make sure that you find someone else who can produce it for you. And if you've ever considered, by the way, launching a podcast and you need some recommendations, just reach out to me on my website and I'll give you a couple of recommendations of folks that you can use to produce your podcast from the lower end to the higher end. I myself am using a higher end production company where I pay them a considerable amount of money, but I do it because I know I get a return on investment from the money that I spend. And you might say, well, maybe podcasts aren't really for me. Eric, it's easy for you. This is your gig. This is what you do. And I just want to encourage you. You have to market your business. And one of the most successful ways to market your business is to create a format where people can get to know you, trust you, and like you so that you can attract and keep your customers. And I've found for my business that podcasting is one of the ways that I do that most effectively. And I encourage you to consider it for your business. And let me just give you some statistics here. I launched my show in January 2019, and the first month it was downloaded 71 times. Last month, in July of 2021, it was downloaded 6,852 times. So that's a really nice steady growth over the 2 years. And again, I'm not looking to get rich and famous through my podcast. I'm not trying to be Joe Rogan. I'm not trying to be Tim Ferris. I'm just being me, serving my niche and my industry. And I encourage you to be you and serve your niche and your industry and consider using a podcast to do that. Like I said earlier, I'm committed to playing long-term games with long-term people. I find the podcast a lot of fun. I love interviewing people. I love getting to know construction industry experts. And if you do it for the right reasons, if you get it launched right and stay consistent, it can really have a tremendous positive impact in your business. So whether you get 1,000 downloads a month or 100,000 downloads a month, you'll find that having a podcast can have a tremendous positive impact on your business. Thank you for listening to the show. I know it's a little bit unorthodox, this one here today, but what I want to encourage you to do is if you have any questions about how I've launched my podcast and just any questions around marketing, feel free to reach out to me on my podcast, on my website. If you're a construction industry company leader or company owner, just reach out to me on Construction Genius. You'll be able to find me there. Give me some feedback on the marketing that you're doing. And if you have any questions, again, about launching a podcast or, the blocking and tackling behind it, reach out to me. I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. And thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. Today's episode was brought to you by the Construction Conclave. If you as a construction leader would like to develop your skills and get involved in a community of like-minded construction professionals who are focused on building healthy teams, profitable projects, and long-term successful businesses, then the Construction Conclave is for you. It's a private invitation-only group of construction leaders that are focused on developing their leadership skills. We do training every single month online that looks at how to become a better leader in a very practical, straightforward way. We also have other events that build community and camaraderie so that you can associate with others who are interested in developing their skills as leaders. If you'd like more information and to see if you qualify for participating in the conclave, feel free to reach out to me, eric@ericanderton.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and thanks again for listening.